Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Get Racing, a motorsports show hosted and created by me, Julian Verano. Today we're going to be talking everything involving the motorsport this weekend. We're going to be seeing Formula One, we're going to be seeing some IndyCar, and we're going to be talking some NASCAR as well, as we have the Montreal Grand Prix race around, I believe it's WTTR in Indy, which is in St. Louis. And lastly, we have a visit to El Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in NASCAR, and we'll also be recapping last weekend's race in Michigan. There will not be any Le Mans content for anyone who's interested, so apologies on that front. I'm just not well versed enough in Le Mans. Maybe for next season, 24 hours, I'll be more well versed in the endurance racing. So we'll see if that ends up being a big aspect for it. But let's get right into it. Let's talk some Formula One. First things first, news around the paddock. Red Bull. Red Bull have been in a very interesting spot this season for a multitude of reasons. Early season sacking of Liam Lawson to bring up Yuki Tsunoda. Has that really panned out? Who knows? It's really up to debate, but Red Bull's second seat continues to be as cursed as ever. However, if you look in the lower formulas, we've seen a lot of young talent of the Red Bull Academy starting to perform, specifically 17-year-old Arvin Lindblad. Arvin Lindblad's been very, very good in Formula 2. The young driver got his first win in Saudi, so that's fantastic to see for him. He looks to be a very promising young talent, and, Red Bull's been considering potentially bringing him up to Formula 1. But here's the thing, even though Lindblad reaches every single requirement to race in Formula 1, he does not have the crucial thing, which is a super license. Now, you're probably wondering, if he has all the points for a super license, why can't he get it? Well, the big reason why is because he is below the age of 18. You need to be at least 18 years old before you can race with a super license in Formula 1. Before you can acquire a super license, actually, but that's besides the point. And so Red Bull went to the FIA and they went, hey, can we please get this guy, Arvin Lindblad, a super license? And after a bit of negotiation, after a bit of conversation with the FIA budged, and Arvin Lindblad now has his super license, which means we could potentially be seeing him on the Formula One grid this very next season, literally 1 year from now. And that is going to be really interesting if you are Red Bull, for a multitude of reasons, because how hot is the seat that Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson are on right now? How hot is their seat? Because the way the season's gone so far for Red Bull, if we're going to be talking potentially having Arvin Lindblad come in, maybe even during this season, which I would say is crazy, but Red Bull has been nothing short of surprising with their driver moves. So, I'm not going to question it. Maybe that's just the most Red Bull thing in the world. But what is happening for Yuki Tsunoda? He was such a talented driver. He is a talented driver, to be fair. And he was doing fantastic at that Racing Bulls when it was AlphaTauri. He came in. I remember when he first came in, he was a young guy, had some anger issues, was very inconsistent, especially early on. But he developed into a good driver by his third season in that second Red Bull team. So Racing Bulls, AlphaTauri. By his third season, he was really starting to rack up some good results. He was finishing either just outside the points or just in the points in a car that, calling a spade should not have been there. And it just goes to show how good Yuki Tsunoda's been as a prospect. So when Liam Lawson was given the Red Bull seat to start off the year, there was a lot of people complaining about it. A lot of people were going, hey, Yuki should be in that seat, not Liam. Liam hasn't done anything to earn it. And I believe it was, 2-3 races in? Yeah, 2-3 races in, Yuki Tsunoda was moved up from the Racing Bulls to replace Liam Lawson, who had started P20 in 2 races. He was struggling very, very profoundly. And Liam Lawson was looking decent, but still very unproven in his time when he was in the Racing Bulls 2 seasons beforehand. So that was a big talking point. If he was brought up too soon, then he got sent back down this season. Yuki was expected to be way better. And I think in race pace, Yuki's been pretty good He's fought through the field. He's been able to drag the car to the bottom half of the points. But when you're in the second Red Bull, you're not expected to be in the bottom half of the points. You're expected to be fighting for top 6 finishes, to be fighting potentially for podiums, to maybe even be in contention for a win. At least that's what Red Bull paints it out to be. And Yuki's just not been that. He started last weekend. He struggled, last time out. He struggled. And now in Montreal, he's not really been up to the pace. He's been struggling around this track, and the questions now have been swirling. Did Red Bull make the right decision of kicking out Liam Lawson? Because Liam Lawson, he's still struggling a bit in this Racing Bulls, but he has the pressure off of him. He's performing a bit better, and the questions now are swirling. Is Yuki ready for this move? And this just comes back to the age-old question. Hey, what's wrong with this Red Bull second seat? Sergio Perez, he's been talking so much in the past. He was saying this car is terrible. This car has collapsed. And yes, when Checo first came in, he was the definitive second driver of the team, and he knew that. But he would still be able to get a win. He was still finishing consistent seconds, thirds. He was doing everything he could out of that Red Bull. And as the time went on, so from 2021 to 2022, so moving forward, Checo was just falling further behind Max Verstappen. He was just not there. He had no pace. He wasn't the driver that people were expecting him to be, and that led to his sacking after an atrocious season last year. But he was saying the car is getting worse. The car is becoming so preferred to Max Verstappen while also just being not very drivable that no one can drive this car except for Max Verstappen. And Max Verstappen, he's still getting everything he can. I mean, he finished first in the first practice session right now in Montreal, and he's gotten 2 wins this season. He's been fantastic, and that just goes to show how good Max Verstappen is. But deep down, we all know this Red Bull is not as good as people paint it out to be, and the car is so made for Max Verstappen that they're struggling. There's no other way to put it. The car is struggling profoundly, and we've seen it with Liam, we've seen it with Yuki, we've seen it with Checo. The second seat is cursed. We're seeing so many talented drivers. I mean, Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, 2 drivers that are very, very good, have demonstrated race-winning pace, Pierre Gasly's won a race. And you look at how good they've been, and deep down, it's just what's wrong with the second Red Bull seat. They cannot keep struggling the way that they are. And with Yuki's struggles and the fact that Honda's no longer going to be with Red Bull, is he out of the Red Bull program next season? Where would he even go on the grid if he even gets a speed on the grid? That's big talk. Because, circling back, Arvin Lindblad, it's looking like he's going to be getting a Racing Bull seat next season. So the question is, who's going to partner him at Racing Bulls? Who's going to get the call up to Red Bull? Because I think that might be a larger concern for a driver like Isaac Hadjar. Red Bull's been good at destroying their young drivers, and they've struggled so much at having someone come in since Max Verstappen came in and did his thing. So that was a big aspect of it, and you're sitting here wondering, man, are people just not good? Are people not able to follow through? Because that's a big aspect to it. Or is it just that Red Bull has not been able to get anything going because they've made the car so for Max? Is this new regulation change finally going to bring something back to that second Red Bull seat? Because it might. And if I'm Isaac Hadjar, I would love to race for a top-tier team that like Red Bull is and whatnot, and I think the best time to do so would be at a regulation change. So maybe Hadjar's finally put himself in the window for that Red Bull C for the 2026 new regulations, and the car's going to be different, and it's going to be fantastic for him. Or they're going to run it back with Yuki, or they give Liam a chance, or they throw Arvin Lindblad into the deep end, into that second Red Bull seat immediately. We could see him do that. Either way, I don't think one of Liam or Yuki is going to be in the Red Bull system next season, and I think Arvin Lindblad's for sure going to be taking that seat. We could be seeing some movement even by the end of this season if it comes to it, but I just don't think Red Bull's going to sacrifice Arvin Lindblad like the sacrificial lamb in that manner. I don't think they're going to do that to him. I don't think they're going to go all out and do that for him. I think they're just going to see where it goes, and they're going to put Yuki and or Liam on the hot seat, be the scapegoat, kick him out at the end of the season. And it's looking just very likely it's going to be Yuki Tsunoda. There's no more Honda ties next season. They're going to be having Ford making their Red Bull powertrain engines. So no more Honda ties. I mean, you could talk Yuki maybe going to Aston Martin, but I don't see him kicking out Alonso. I definitely don't see him kicking out Lance Stroll. But you got to think, is Honda going to have enough pull to force Yuki over to the Aston Martin? That's going to be a good, fun thing to see potentially in this offseason, come silly season. Who knows? But Red Bull, I just don't feel confident that Yuki or Liam, or maybe even both of them, but definitely one of them won't be here next season in the Red Bull. I think they're definitely going to struggle. Moving on to another car that's been struggling this year, let's talk about the Alpines. They've been bad. They've been bad this season. They've struggled. Pierre Gasly's been getting a lot out of the car, but Jack Doohan struggled early in the season. They put in Franco Colapinto, and Colapinto's been struggling like crazy. He's been off the pace. He's been bad. He's not shown speed. He hasn't crashed the car, which is nice to see for him, but he's not shown pace. He's not shown speed. The car's not been favorable for him, and he's shown no promise in the machine in all the races he's been in there for. So the question becomes, was it worth it sacking Jack Doohan? I don't think it was. They sacked Jack Doohan really early on into the season, and it wasn't fair to Jack in any stretch of the imagination. He was a young driver. He'd been testing with the team for a while. You'd think that maybe the leash was a little bit longer, but his Formula 1 career looks like it only lasted 6 races. And that's just really unfortunate for Jack Doohan. He did not deserve to be canned in the way that he was by Alpine. And they brought in Colapinto, hoping that he would be getting more results, that he would be a lot more flashy, that he'd be able to do everything that he showed that he could potentially do in the Williams when he wasn't in the wall. And, he's kept it out of the wall, which is good, but apart from that, he's been slow. He has struggled. He's not been a car that has shown anything. And yes, you can blame the fact that the Alpine is not a good car. They've struggled so mightily this season. It's not their season in anything. But, man, it's been bad. It's been terrible. And, Franco, he's going to be under the scrutiny. I know Flavio Briatore came out and said that even his seat isn't safe, so there might even be a potential sack of Franco this season. I mean, it was rumored that he had a 5-race contract just like Doohan did, so that contract is coming to an end soon, and who knows? Who knows where that ends up going for him, but I don't know. Franco's struggling a lot. I don't see him turning back to Doohan, and at the same time, I don't see Alpine having another driver. I mean, you can bring up Kushmaini, maybe, but why would you do that? There's no reason to do that. It's been bad. It's been atrocious for Alpine, and this mess that they put themselves in, sacking Jack Doohan, bringing in Franco, who's been just as bad, if not worse than Jack, maybe. I mean, no, to be fair, Jack was crashing the car. Franco's kept it clean, I guess, so there's that little tiny bit of improvement, but does that show that sacking Doohan was worth it? I don't think so. I think you would have just stuck it with Doohan, kept it, saved your money of bringing in a new driver, and the next season with the regulation change, you either bring in Colapinto, you bring in another driver. I mean, you can look at maybe Liam Lawson or Yuki, who end up being open. You put them in that other seat. They're way more proven than a Colapinto or a Doohan. So there's that aspect to it, right? But I don't know. I don't think sacking Jack Doohan was worth it. It was bad optically for Alpine. It was bad for the team in terms of them pushing forward. It was bad for them in so many different elements. And the on-track results have not been enough to, balance that negative press, that negative perception that they brought in for sacking Jack Doohan. So I don't think it was worth it. Could we see Franco get sacked? I mean, maybe. I know I already mentioned it, but no, I don't think we see him get sacked. I think he survives the season, but I don't know if he survives much past that. So we'll see where it goes for Franco, and we'll see where that ends up pushing for him. Uh, let's talk about this race weekend. So far, we've had 2 practice sessions in Montreal, which I'll be honest is one of my favorite tracks in on the Formula One grid. It's one of my favorite circuits, and I mean, maybe that's me talking bias. Bias. Oh, you live in Canada, of course you like the Canadian track. No, ever since I was younger, one of my favorite tracks on the racing on the Formula One games, watching quality from the 2008 pole on pole. Well, it wasn't pole on pole, but it was 2018 pole gets the win with Robert Kubica. Kubica had the massive shunt in 2007. Button's crazy drive in 2011. Um, you know, there's so many moments that have happened at this Canadian Grand Prix, and I think it's just a beautiful track, and it presents amazing racing. So I am very biased in that sense of how much I really like this track. But so far this weekend, it's been nothing short of electric. First practice session of the weekend, Williams gave me hope. Williams is my favorite team on the grid. I love them so profoundly, and this season they've been nothing but a joy to watch. They've brought me so much joy, consistent points finishes. It seems like they might be consistently the 5th best car on the grid. It makes me so happy to see that Williams is finally starting to get into the good books. Maybe they finally get the regulations right in 2026 and they bring it, and I'm so happy. But that's way too far ahead. Let's just talk about this weekend. FP1 was great. They finished P2, P3. In FP2, they finished 4th and 7th. They're showing a lot of speed this weekend, and they have final practice today. Final practice is in an hour at the time of recording, so just a heads up for that. But at the time of recording, qualifying is going to be later today, and I think Williams is going to be showing off really, really nicely, and I think that's going to be fun to see. And they're not the only team that's been showing out in these practice sessions. Fernando Alonso been showing really good, and at the front end after FP1, the top 3 was Verstappen followed by the Williams pairing, and then you look at FP2, and it was George Russell at the top of the timing sheets with Lando Norris second, Kimi Antonelli third. And you're seeing these cars really show out and have these fantastic sessions. We know how good the McLarens are. We know how good Verstappen is. But Williams showing pace. Mercedes, they've been poor in the recent weeks. Maybe they finally end up getting it back on track for them. They finally end up going at the speed we know they can go. They end up being a preferred car. Montreal is a good circuit. Maybe that's going to be their benefit of the doubt this weekend. George Russell's been good. Kimi Antonelli can finally surprise again. Finally get back on the horse following his 2 atrocious weekends recently. Maybe that's what ends up happening here for Mercedes. But we've seen so many different faces towards the front end of these practice sessions. Let's just hope that ends up being the case for qualifying. Let's really hope that ends up being the case for the race, because it would give us such an amazing set of circumstances for the racing we see on Sunday. Team that has not been very good this weekend, Ferrari. I mean, Hamilton's been off the pace. He's been really off the pace, and he's talked about how much he struggled. And, let's see how he does in final practice 3, how he does in qualifying. But the big talking point was Charles Leclerc. He ended up crashing out of first practice. He was not able to really get much going. He wasn't showing a lot of promise. He locked up into turn 3. And there you go. Bob's your uncle. He crashed it. He binned it. And, that ends up being a talking point about, first of all, track surface. Colapinto spun a couple times. Stroll crashed. And a lot of people have been saying that there's been significantly less grip this weekend than there has been in past weekends. So, maybe that ends up being a big aspect of it. But, deep down, if you want to just really keep it the way it is, Leclerc should not be making that mistake. And he did. It was a dumb mistake. It cost him FP1. It cost him the entirety of FP2. And he's going to be back out there for final practice 3. He's going to be out there for qualifying. So that's going to be good to see for him. But, how much more tentatively are we going to be seeing this Charles Leclerc drive? How much more is he going to hold back this weekend? I think it's going to be a substantial amount. I think it's going to be a weekend to forget for Ferrari. And so while all these teams like Mercedes, Williams, Aston Martin to an extent, And you see the top boys in Red Bull and McLaren. They're all gunning it out for the top spots. I don't think Ferrari really gets it going. So let's get into my predictions here. Pole sitter prediction. Who I think is going to be sitting on pole. I'm going to go with George Russell. He's been due for a good race. He's been due for a top row start. And he's looked fast this weekend. That Mercedes has seemingly bounced back. You're seeing how fast George has been in the past. And I think today, actually, at the time of recording, he is able to get a fantastic qualifying run. I think that he's going to get it pushing. He's going to do a fantastic stint in Q3, and he's going to put it ahead of everybody. So for my pole sitter, I think it's going to be George Russell. For my race winner, this is maybe just hype, but I think it's going to be one of the McLarens. They've just been so good this year, and maybe that's me finally collapsing and not having hope. Oh, these other cars, you just talked so much about how good the Mercedes are. You've talked so much about how good Williams has been. Max has been to the front. Yeah, but McLaren's race pace this season has been astronomical. And we know they're going to bring it every single Grand Prix. They're going to be good at every single track. And, it's going to be one of the McLarens. They're going to win. They're going to win this weekend. Now, which one's going to win? I'm tipping more towards Lando. He's looked faster this weekend. He's seemed more on the pace. I won't be surprised if Oscar's the one that ends up coming out on top. But I'm going to tip Lando Norris to be the race winner this weekend in Montreal. He wants to try to combat this championship. He wants to try to stay close to Oscar Piastri. And I think he definitely can. So, we're going to see where it ends up going. It's going to be a fun little race to see how these things end up panning out. But I think Lando is going to be the one coming out on top of the McLarens. But it's going to be a McLaren on the top step of the podium by the time the dust settles at the end of this weekend. Heading into the IndyCar portion now, let's talk some IndyCar. We're going to have a night race, oval night race here in St. Louis for IndyCar. And I'm very excited to see where this ends up going. We have a lot of potential for there to finally be a third different winner this season. Alex Palou is not known to be an oval driver. Yes, he won the Indy 500, the only oval we've seen so far this season, but he's historically not been an oval driver, considering the 500 was his first ever win in an oval. So maybe that's not going to be a big aspect there. I mean, it's Alex Palou. I can't hold it past him. He's definitely going to be strong, most likely. So there's that aspect to it. But the other guy who's won 2 races this season is Kyle Kirkwood. He dominates on the street circuits, and he's been good on all the street circuits so far this season. And, he's not going to be as good on the oval. He's shown that he's not an oval racer. So is this the weekend we get our third winner of the season in IndyCar? I surely think so. I surely hope so. And let's talk about who that could potentially be. And all eyes point to one very specific garage, and that is Team Penske. This is a strong track for Penske in the recent years. Joseph Newgarden's won 4 of the past 5 here. Scott McLaughlin and Will Power have been on pole for the last 4 races here in St. Louis. So this is a track that very heavily favors those Penske cars. They seem to have the setup just right every single time out here in St. Louis. So if there's any weekend that you expect Penske to finally bounce back after this tough start to the season, it's going to be here in St. Louis. I think that's going to be the way to go, is lean some Penske. But another big thing is St. Louis has historically been a track that throws up a surprise. They throw up having, maybe a young driver finally gets the results going. Maybe a guy surprises people. That's been a big talking point. But who knows where that ends up going this weekend if we want to talk potential sleepers for the upcoming weekend. I threw together 3, but it really could be anybody. I mean, from Santino Ferrucci, who's been very good, at Connor Daly. That's all a talking point there. But the 3 that I want to make a noise this weekend, who I think will, is going to be Stingray Robb. He got a very good finish here in 2024. I think he's going to be able to carry that momentum now and really accentuate his season. Kevin Simpson's coming off a very good race weekend 2 weeks ago now. And I think he's going to be able to bounce back. even further. Kiffin Simpson's been good. He's been a driver that I've just fallen in love with. I have so much love for Kiffin Simpson for some reason, but I think that he will, put on a show this weekend, and it'll be a good piece to watch. And the last guy I went with was Rinus VeeKay. They got a new staff heading into the Indy 500 weekend, and that was a big talking point at the time. It's died down since, and Rinus VeeKay has not been as good this season as in the past. The new staff helped him out. He got a decent finish at Indy. He was all right the week after in Detroit. But this is going to be the weekend I think Rinus VeeKay finally comes into his own. I think he's going to have a good weekend all around, and I think he's going to be able to produce. So, we'll see where that ends up going for him in this aspect. So, all in all, those are my 3 drivers to watch as sleepers, but I think it's going to be a Penske weekend. That is, unless Scott Dixon makes his resurgence. Because Scott Dixon is a very good driver. I mean, he's won multiple championships in IndyCar. He has the most wins of anybody currently active. And you throw on top of the fact that the last 6 races in St. Louis, they've been won by Joseph Newgarden or they've been won by Scott Dixon. So Scott Dixon also knows his way around the St. Louis track. Yes, if I think the Ganassi car is going to be Kiffin Simpson, but Scott Dixon can definitely come in and make some noise. So that's going to be a fun little aspect to see. Can Scott Dixon make his return? Can he finally make some noise? That's going to be fun to see when it comes to it. But let's get into predictions. Who I think is going to be on pole. And like I said, it's going to be hard to bank against Penske. Penske's been the strong team here historically. They get the results, they know what they do, and they always have speed around St. Louis. So this weekend, I think it's going to continue. I think it's going to be Will Power on pole. He's been, after his results in Detroit, he seems to have some confidence back. I think he's going to do a fantastic lap today on Saturday, and he's going to put it on pole for the IndyCar race in St. Louis. So that's going to be a fun little aspect to watch for Penske, but I don't think he's going to be the Penske car that wins. As bland as it is, considering he's won the last 4 here, yeah, it's boring. But I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden, man, he's been fantastic. He's been very good. And I'm really hoping that he can keep that up. And with the season that he's had, with the season that Penske's had, they're going to want it. So for my IndyCar prediction, I think Will Power is going to be on pole. I think Joseph Newgarden is going to walk away with the win in St. Louis. That race is at 8 p.m. tomorrow on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely be sure to check it out if you can. It's going to be a fun little race to check. And lastly, there's going to talk some NASCAR. And we're not oval racing this weekend in NASCAR. They're kind of flipped with IndyCar, who've returned a lot to the road courses this season. It's going to be, this weekend, it's going to be NASCAR at the road courses. They will be visiting El Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the first very time here, and we'll talk more about that aspect after we recap the weekend in Michigan that just passed. Denny Hamlin won his 3rd race of the season in Michigan. He ties Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell in wins on the season, all 3 of them tied with 3. And it just goes to show that Denny Hamlin has been showing some good pace. Denny Hamlin is the oldest driver currently on the NASCAR grid. He has surprised a lot of cars or drivers to maintain the pace that he has so far. We've seen so many cars and drivers like Kyle Busch, like Brad Keselowski. They've been struggling. They've fallen back. They're not as good as they have been in the past. But Denny Hamlin is still showing a lot of speed at his age, and that's really good to see for him. Denny getting his 3rd win of the season. So a lot of props to Denny Hamlin. We'll see. We'd love to see what he does this upcoming weekend, but there's some news about Denny Hamlin that we'll cover in a bit. But it's just that he will not be racing this upcoming weekend. He had his son be born during this week, so he's going to be taking a paternity leave for the weekend. Ryan Truex will be the one taking over that 11 car when it comes to the race in Mexico. So that's going to be fun to see for Ryan Truex. We'll see if that ends up being a big aspect for him. He hasn't raced in Cup since 2014, so Ryan Truex, younger brother to Martin, is he ready? He's been the JGR guy in testing. He's been the guy in the garage on the simulator helping with the car. So, he knows the 11 car. He's going to be fine to an extent, but is he going to win? I don't think so. I don't think he will. It's just going to be a whatever week. A lot of love to Denny Hamlin and his fiance on the birth of their son. So rest up, Denny. Spend time with your family. We'll look forward to seeing you back on the track soon. If you want to talk about other things that happened the Michigan weekend, RFK seemed to finally get it going. They had a second-place finish from Chris Buescher, who's been very frustrated with how his season's gone. He got that suspension earlier in the season, but he was able to fix it, and now he's clawing back his way into the points. So, he can definitely, if he's able to secure a win, if he's able to get that result, it's going to be fun to see for him. So, let's see where it ends up going for him. Let's see how it ends up pushing for Chris Buescher. He definitely can respond to how his season has started, just how his season's been going, the penalty pushing him back. He's back in the points, as I mentioned, so Chris Buescher's been good. But this is more so to show love to all of RFK, because Ryan Preece finished 9th, Brad Keselowski finished 10th. All three cars in the top 10 when it comes to it. So that's been a joy to see for this RFK team. They've struggled this season. It's not been ideal, but when push comes to shove, they've seemed to finally get it going, and that's lovely to see. So, big ups to the RFK boys. Maybe they actually get some more speed into the car this weekend in Mexico. You look now to a bit of heartbreak. Let's talk some heartbreak from this weekend in Michigan. William Byron and Carson Hocevar, they both led the most laps of the race. William Byron led 98 laps. Carson Hocevar led 32, and it was heartbreak for both of them. They finished 28th and 29th, so on paper you'd think, well, it wasn't a good race for them, but at the white flag, William Byron was leading the race, and he ran out of fuel, and that forced him to have to pit, get some fuel, finish the race. Coming to the white, it just wasn't ideal for William Byron. He struggled in that aspect. That is the 4th time this season that he's led 80 laps in a race, and he's not won any of those races. He has a win this season, so that's good for William Byron. He'll for sure be in the chase and everything. He's the point leader, so there's no way he misses. But he leads so many laps. He dominates on the weekends. He wins stages. But he just can't close out and get the wins at races. So let's see how that ends up affecting him come chase time. When things become crunch time, you need to win races. Maybe they get that sorted, but the luck has just not been on William Byron's side. And even though he's the leader in points right now, he's the leader in playoff points as well, if I recall. He's not the guy you want out there if it comes to actually closing out races. Another one right there is going to be Carson Hocevar. He was leading the race with 19 laps to go. Flat left tire, interestingly enough. It wasn't the right tire, so he didn't brush up against the wall or anything. Left tire went flat. He had to slow down, crawl his way back to the pits, and he stopped, which was really nice for him to actually be able to finish the race, but it's 29th, a lap down. Not ideal for Carson Hocevar, but I've done so much talking about Carson Hocevar on this podcast about how much I like him as a racer, how talented he is, that I'm really hoping that he can finally put it in victory lane this season or soon, because he's shown the pace, he's shown the speed, he's been the driver to watch. So, for his sake, I'm really hoping that he's able to get it going. But it was a tough weekend in Michigan for Carson Hocevar, and we'll see how he bounces back here in Mexico. Ooh. I don't know. I've been saying it differently all this time because I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll say it in English. It's been a mess. Anyway. Other drivers that ran surprisingly good all day was Kyle Busch. He finished 8th. Kyle Busch has quietly been resaving his season. He's not been as good as Denny Hamlin. And, I think he's kind of kicking himself for not being at JGR. I mean, he's at RCR. But he has a good weekend in that 8 car, finishing 8th. So that's nice to see for Kyle Busch. And another car that was really good was Zane Smith. Zane Smith was really good. He finished 7th. He started further up in the order as well. He was running in the top 10 consistently all day. Finished 7th, so that's always a joy to see for him. So those two were the highlight finishers for me when it comes to this Michigan race. They were fantastic to see on the weekend, and I'm really hoping that this weekend in Mexico they do well. But From there, let's go right into it. El Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, we've seen it multiple times in the Formula One calendar. It's raced in Mexico City, in La Ciudad de Mexico. But it's been a bit of a struggle for these NASCARs. A lot of cars have been talking about a lack of grip. They've not been able to get it sorted. It seems like stock cars don't race around this track as comfortably as they have in the past. But it is a circuit. It's not even a street race. It is a proper circuit. So if there's one thing I can say, expect your road course ringers to do well on this track. I mean, the big guy to watch is Shane Van Gisbergen. He was signed for races like this one. And there's going to be a couple more. So we have Sonoma, Watkins Glen, Streets of Chicago, and then in the playoffs, the Roval. But all eyes are going to be on Shane Van Gisbergen this weekend if he finally is going to be the one to get the race result. Is he going to be the one to lead the race? Is he going to be the one to take it to everybody? Who knows? But expect other road course ringers like AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell. Expect them to have good races as well. So, maybe it's not a lock for Van Gisbergen at all, but I think he's going to be doing well. Talking about the practice sessions that we've seen so far, a guy who's been very good in my book, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs, third in both practice sessions. Yes, it's practice, but you're heading into qualifying. He's shown a lot of speed. He's been good around this track, around El Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. He's been fantastic in all elements, and he's dragging that JGR car. I say dragging. I mean, he's up there. But the reason why it's surprising is because the real talk of the field has been the Fords. Austin Cindric put it on top of one session. Todd Gilliland put it on top of another. He's been surprising a few. He finished top 10 in the first practice session. He finished on top on the second practice session. And the Fords have just been the dominant forces. Blaney's up there. Cindric's up there. Logano's up there. You look even further down, it's just not been a track for cars that aren't, Fords. They've been the dominant car this weekend. So let's get into race prediction. Let's talk about that. So this weekend in Mexico, who I think is going to be standing on pole, I'm going to give it to Shane Van Gisbergen. He is the road course wrangler. He's been fantastic, and he's shown the speed this weekend, been top 10 all weekend so far. I think he's going to really put it on for Saturday. He's going to put it on pole. He's going to be fast. He's going to show off that speed, and I think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to start on pole in Mexico. Now, who do I think is going to win the race, though? I think it's going to be Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has been really good this season. He's been fantastic from a lot of these tracks, but he's been unfortunate, caught up in crashes, things that are not his mistake. And, that's just when it comes to oval racing. Oval racing is, to an extent, a lot of luck when it comes to where you are. Someone gets spun out in front of you. If you get collected, it is what it is. It's not on you. Hard to save the car. But on road courses, you have a bit more control of your destiny. Now, obviously, if you get collected, you get collected, but you're able to control it a lot more. You're able to stay decisive. What you do matters. And he's been fast this weekend like all the Fords. He's been good like the Penske's. And just like in IndyCar, where I think Penske's going to win, I think they're going to win in NASCAR as well. Give me Ryan Blaney. I think he's going to get his second win of the season and really solidify himself and get into the title hunt early in this point. I think he's going to start collecting more and more good finishes. This weekend is going to show that off. I think he's going to win it. So, first race here at El Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in La Ciudad de Mexico, I think is going to be Ryan Blaney in his number 12 Ford winning this weekend. So, that's that. I've given my predictions, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments on YouTube, on Spotify. Thank you so much. If you like this content, please like the video. Please like the stream. I don't know how it works on Spotify, but add this to your playlist, like it, share, follow. And if you're on YouTube, please like the video, please subscribe, please share with all your friends. I really, really do appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Julian Verano, and we'll be talking after this weekend to recap all the action. So hopefully that day, Colin is with us. Who knows if he will be. He's been very, very busy lately. So we'll be seeing more of him later on in the season once this busy season. If anyone here watches the Valorant stream, the majors happening right now in Toronto. My boy Colin is working a lot on those events. A lot of people are caught up in that. So if you're also a Valorant fan, heck yeah, Shout out Paper Rex. Let's see how they end up doing in this tournament. They won against G2 yesterday. So, yeah, Valorant tangent aside, like the video, subscribe, and tell all your friends. I really do appreciate everyone who listens to this content. I've been Julian Quintero Verano. Thank you so much. Have a great day. See ya.